Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a super vibrant, interactive reading journey that's just perfect for practicing our E3 English together. We're going to explore this really colorful, cartoon-style world as we dig into a classic Aesop's fable called The Boys and the Frogs. Now, this isn't just some simple story. It's actually a really powerful lesson about perspective, empathy, and the real weight of our actions. There's a lot we can all learn from it. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, here is our learning agenda for today. First, the pond adventure. Second, key verb phrases. Third, the golden sentence. Fourth, role play, Q&A time. And finally, number 5, the final takeaway. All right, let's start with section 1, the pond adventure.
So I want you to imagine stepping into this bright, beautifully animated cartoon pond. The sun's shining, the water's cool, and our story begins like this. A group of boys were playing at the edge of a pond when they noticed several frogs swimming about in the water. Notice that phrase, playing at the edge of? It gives us the exact location of the boys. They're totally safe up there on the land. And swimming about just paints this picture of the happy, peaceful movement of the frogs right there in their home. Everyone's just enjoying a really beautiful day.
But, well, let's see how this situation suddenly takes a bad turn. Read this next part with me. For their own amusement, they began hurling stones at them, and each time a frog was struck, the boys shouted with laughter. Look at the really intense verbs we have here. Hurling stones at isn't just a light toss, right? It's throwing with real force and carelessness. And when a frog was struck, it means it was hit hard. And how did the boys react to this? They shouted with laughter. So we're seeing this rising conflict here, contrasting the boys' careless, loud laughter with this sudden, very real danger brought down on the poor frogs.
Okay, things are getting pretty intense now. Let's actually slow down our pace a bit as we read the next part. At length, one of the frogs summoned the courage to lift his head above the surface and cried out. Look at those powerful action verbs. Summoned the courage literally means this little cartoon frog had to dig really deep inside himself to find bravery, even when he was absolutely terrified. He had to lift his head above the dangerous water to face these giants up on the shore. You can just feel the tension building right before he speaks.
And here is what our brave little frog says. Really try to feel the dramatic shift in emotion as you read this quote with me. I beg you, stop. What may be sport to you is death to us. You throw your stones in play, but we perish in earnest. Wow, that is a massive emotional plea. The frog is literally begging for their lives, drawing this sharp, terrifying line between what's just a fun game for the boys and an absolute disaster for the frogs.
So, how does the story end? Well, hearing this, the boys fell silent, ashamed of the cruelty they had thoughtlessly inflicted and threw no more. The boys finally realized their huge mistake. Notice the specific phrases that show this sudden realization. They fell silent, meaning all that shouting with laughter just stopped instantly. They were ashamed of their actions, realizing the pain they had inflicted, which just means the pain they had caused. It's a very quiet, reflective ending to our pond adventure.
Moving right along to section 2, key verb phrases.
Now that we've experienced the story, let's break down the vocabulary together. This slide right here brilliantly illustrates the absolute core conflict of our story. Let's look at this visual comparison. Over on the left side, we've got the boys' view of the exact same event. To them, it's sport, play, amusement, and a reason to shout with laughter. But look on the right side. The frog's view of those exact same rocks flying through the air is death, perish in earnest, suffering, and being struck. It perfectly shows us how two completely different realities can exist at the exact same time, all depending entirely on your perspective.
Let's look a little closer at some of the action verbs. Number 1, swim about. This simply means moving around in the water randomly and happily. Super peaceful. Number 2, hurl stones at. Remember, this isn't a gentle toss. It means to throw something very forcefully. And number 3, inflict. Now, this is a slightly higher level word that means to force someone to experience something very unpleasant or painful. For example, the boys inflicted pain on the frogs.
Next up, we have the emotion and reaction verbs. These ones tell us what the characters are actually feeling on the inside. Number 1, summon the courage. Think of this as pulling all your bravery together right when you're the most scared. Number 2, fall silent. This means to stop talking or laughing very suddenly, usually because you're shocked. And number 3, ashamed of. This is when you feel deep guilt or embarrassment because you know for sure that you did something wrong.
All right, let's jump to section 3, the golden sentence.
You know, every great fable has a moral, and this story has a truly beautiful one that we can all learn from. Let's read this core moral slowly and clearly together, and just let its profound meaning really sink in. Never pursue your own pleasure at the expense of another's suffering.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the phrase at the expense of. It means achieving something, like having fun or getting a reward, by causing harm, loss, or suffering to someone else. Our golden sentence is telling us that our happiness is never truly good if it requires someone else to be in pain. And hey, mastering this phrase will make your conversational English sound very sophisticated.
Okay, section 4, role-play Q&A time.
Now it's your turn to practice your English by stepping directly into the story. Here's your first role play. I want you to imagine you are one of the boys standing on the edge of the pond at the very beginning of the story. You've got a stone in your hand. Tell me, why are you throwing stones? Think back to the words we used for fun and games from the boys' perspective. What would you say?
Here's a suggested E3 level answer. You could say, "We are doing it for our own amusement. It is just sport and play for us." See how naturally we can use the words amusement, sport, and play to explain the boys' careless perspective? Excellent job.
Let's switch perspectives now. Role play 2. Now you are the brave cartoon frog down in the pond. The rocks are splashing all around you. You need to channel your courage to defend your home. What do you say to stop the boys? Try to think about that serious, heavy vocabulary from the frog's perspective.
Here is a really powerful model response you could give. "I beg you, stop. We are perishing in earnest. Your play is death to us." Using phrases like perishing in earnest, which literally means dying in reality, and death contrasts perfectly with the boys' word play. Okay, one last role play. Role play 3. You are the boys again, but this time it's at the end of the story. The brave frog has just spoken his powerful words. How do you feel right now? Think about that big moral shift and the reaction verbs we learned.
And here is our final model answer. You might say, "We fall silent. We are ashamed of the cruelty we thoughtlessly inflicted." Brilliantly utilizing fall silent, ashamed of, and inflicted perfectly completes this exercise. You're really grasping not just the vocabulary here, but the deep emotional core of the story.
Finally, section 5, the final takeaway.
Let's step out of our role play now and look at the big picture of what we've learned today in this explainer. Number 1, true fun shouldn't hurt others. Our amusement should never be a weapon. Number 2, always consider the other perspective. What looks like a simple game from the edge of the pond might look like an absolute nightmare from the water. And number 3, words have the power to stop cruelty. Remember, the frog summoned his courage and used his words to completely change the boy's behavior.
I want to leave you with this final thought. If you see someone pursuing pleasure at the expense of another today, will you summon the courage to speak up? Take the great English phrases we practiced today, along with the deep empathy from this classic fable, and carry them with you out into the real world. Thank you so much for joining me on this interactive reading journey, and I absolutely can't wait to see you for our next explainer.